This episode is brought to you by Bellator's Publishing, bringing stories to the world that last forever.
Today on Faithfully Fantasy. This tunic as well is camouflaged in red color. There's the color of the blood. So does it mean there's camouflaging something else as well? Maybe Mira's red eyes or something.
So that means that signet has been erased from history, which possibly means that Melgren has them killed. Anybody that becomes a precog and manifests, he has them killed.
Sloane attention, if I know the sign, maybe the touch. Maybe when she was touching Brennan, it was maybe too cold, like corpse cold.
Oh, creepy.
Hello and welcome to Faithfully Fantasy,
The husband and wife podcast talking all things Onyx Storm.
I'm JC.
And I'm Sean.
And today we cover chapters 58 to 60. And just heads up, we use a strong language and explore adult themes.
This episode will contain spoilers from all three books, as well as snippets of information we've had from Rebecca Yarros since the release of the third book.
And before we start with the squad brief, imagine having early access to our episodes. While everyone waits for Thursday, you'll enjoy them every Tuesday. Plus enjoy bonus episodes every month and ad-free listening. You can have all of this by becoming a supporter. And here's the best part. You can try for free and cancel anytime. For the best deal, visit faithfullyfantasy.com or simple subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts for instant access. Don't miss out and become part of our community of supporters.
Also, if you're enjoying the show, please take a second to rate us wherever you're listening. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all of it. It helps more fantasy lovers find us, and it's one of the easiest ways to support what we do. A quick tap and you've made our day. We are getting so close to diving into the world of Ceres and Kingfisher. So if you haven't read it yet, there is still time to read Quicksilver before we start our new season on July 24th. We'll be wrapping up our coverage of Onyx Storm with an episode live on Instagram. So keep an eye on our Instagram account for more information.
Yeah, can you believe there's just going to be 2 more episodes
I
and
know.
then we're done with Onyx Storm.
I know, well, we're not going to be done with Onyx Storm.
Yeah, it's about the deep dive side. After more than a year, just talking about the Imperium series.
I know.
Now we're just moving on.
Yeah, it'll be sad, but I'm also really excited.
True. And now, without further ado, let's get into a squad brief.
We start with Operation Saving Private Mira as we approach the bottom of the cliffs to meet Theophany, who's waiting with a dozen wyverns, a new outfit from the latest Venin autumn collection. Jack travels halfway across the continent, but he's still in the closet. Auric is the puppet master, and we're all puppets. He sent Sloane to deliver not only a parcel, but some life-saving siphoning. And Dain eyes here Atos saves the day with all that excess power he's packing. With all that excess power he's packing. We find out Violet isn't fighting the Venin version of herself. It's worse. She's facing off against her mother.
This episode has so many things that we need to talk about.
I know, it could be a long one, couldn't it?
Yes, I was just getting crazy every time when I was taking notes that, oh my gosh, we need to talk about this and this and this and this. So buckle up.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yes, okay, time for a history lesson. Let's dive deep and see what the past is hiding about the future. Chapter 58.
Epigraph. Most cadets believe their ability to recite historical fact will usher them onto the adept path, but it's actually their ability to observe and recount that separates the librarians from the scribes. Colonel Daxton's Guide to Excelling in the Scribe Quadrant. So, we've talked a lot about who Colonel Daxton could be.
Yes.
I am going to lock in my theory that this is actually Granny Daxton herself. I think she might have left the Scribe Quadrant when she found out about all of the lies.
Yes.
Or it could be Grandad Daxton. And he was also offed by the other scribes in the same way that we think that Daddy Sorrengail was.
Yeah.
But I just think that you automatically assume, or like people may automatically assume, that it's Granddaddy Daxton, which I think we did do in the past. But as I was reading it this time, I just think there's definitely something that Granny Niara is hiding. And it's possibly that she was a scribe and she left. And that's why she's all the way out there in Lucerys hiding. Not hiding, but you know what I mean. As far away as possible.
Yeah, now that you mention it, we don't have actually proofs, or at least can't recall anything to tell us that Colonel Daxton is a man or a woman.
No, there's nothing, but we assumed it was a man because we thought for so long that it was her dad.
Yes.
So I think we just had it like locked in our heads that it was a man. But I actually think it could be Granny Niara.
Yes, and then Rebecca Yoro said, no, that wasn't Asher Daxton. So immediately we thought it has to be his father, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, would be interesting to see if it's Granny Daxton, the one who was a colonel as well. For me, my first thought was that it was Asher Sorrengail's father. But I thought that maybe he was really good friend with Markhan. And maybe after Asher started to investigate and find out everything that's going on within the scribes, he felt maybe betrayed or he felt ashamed of the Daxton name because maybe Colonel Daxton was really good friend or he was the one who was doing everything with Markhan. And then he was running away from the Daxton name, and that's why he changed it for Sorrengail.
Could still be the mother, though, right? Because we know that they fell out. We know that they didn't speak. Is that the moment he changed his name?
Yes. I mean, that doesn't change. There could be man or woman. But, yeah, for me, my thought is that maybe he found out that he was part of everything that was going on with the scribes. And then he said, I don't want to be part of that anymore.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, I don't know what this epigraph says about Colonel Daxton, because it's like they're trying to separate the librarians from the adept path, and it's saying that the difference is their ability to observe and recount fact, which makes it seem like observe and tell the truth about it. But we don't know whether he or she, I did it again, is saying that they can only get onto the adept path if they observe, and recount fact that's not fact. Like, are they actually redacting? So it's really weird. Also, just whenever we get epigraphs like this or words like this about scribes, you've got to remember who's telling the story.
Yes.
Violet is observing and recounting, which kind of suggests that she would be an adept scribe. Jacinia is just translating, because I was thinking, does that mean anything about Jacinia? But it is actually Violet that's observing this and recounting it, isn't it?
Yes.
Also, weird thing about this epigraph is that it doesn't seem to mean anything, and it doesn't seem to have anything to do with this chapter.
Yeah.
Unless, sorry, I will let you talk in a minute. Unless something in this chapter is not true. Maybe we should keep an eye out for that.
Yes, I mean, we can have a look what's going on. We know exactly what's going to happen. But for me, sometimes I feel the epigraph, I don't know if I always have to be related to what's going to happen in that specific chapter, or it's just sometimes like random.
She's got to get it in there somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I do feel like they usually make sense, though. This one for me was like, I couldn't get it.
Yeah, no, I would say that maybe like 90% of the epigraphs has something related with the chapter. But then there's another one that is just like come from nowhere, and it's just like don't give you any information or anything.
Yeah.
Unless there maybe is coming from something else, from another epigraph, and then you have to just put all the pieces together.
Yeah, maybe what we need to do, because last week, remember, we looked back at the Book of Brennan. This week, we should have looked at all the Colonel Daxton things to see if we could tie a link. Maybe we can do that in a bonus episode soon.
Yeah, we saw the chapter with Violet flying with her, and they're just going to find Theophany to the point when she is meeting with Mira. They fly through the cliffs, they see the Medaro Pass, and they see all the people, they're just climbing, running away from the war. And Violet, she's even thinking, I did this last year, and that was me being a writer, somebody that had like the preparation for this. I can't even imagine people that never have been trained, or even children that has to do this.
Yeah, again, it just like calls it into a bit more reality, doesn't it? That the refugees are climbing the Medaro Pass, and it is really tricky. I mean, Riddick set off the traps. The question is, did they reset those traps? I can't imagine they did, because actually the Medaro Pass was to stop Poor Emil, and they used it as a bit of an evacuation route, but it wouldn't stop Venin.
I think once Xaden give the order that everyone is welcome, he also has to say, just make sure that there's nothing on the way, because that's already difficult for people to come to even put in with traps.
Tan says in this bit, like, because she says, Mira's going to die, or like, these people are going to die, I should do more to save them. And Tan says, you are our lightning wielder. While your life may not matter more than the other riders' your signet does. He says, you are the weapon, and you'll have to learn to accept the sacrifice of others in your name if you want to win this war. Is this just like everyone's like, Andana's the weapon, they've gone to search for the weapon, they're going to find the weapon? Is this just Tan like confirming that actually it's Violet that's the weapon, and she has been all along, and there is no search? And is it this simple?
I thought that Violet, from day one, when they found out she was a lightning, everyone put it, she is the weapon, that she is like the key to eradicate all the venom. But Andarna, she was like the key to cure the venom. So I don't know if there is kind of the difference, but now the Andarna is not there, all the pressure is in Violet. And it's just like, Violet is the only thing that we have to make the difference. The only thing that maybe can keep the balance on favor of Navarre. And obviously, that means that doesn't matter what other things can be on the way, Violet needs to survive.
I agree. So they're flying to Drathus. Well, the outskirts of Drathus. And she notices that there's hordes of wyvern against a line of dragons and griffins. And she like basically is saying, we're far outnumbered. This is going to go to shit. This is really bad. And this is like where you start to build. This is the end of the book. Like, there's going to be a major showdown. Drathus is the city that they've been heading for. Yeah, the fact that they're so far outnumbered automatically makes you kind of think Violet's going to channel, or like, I don't think she did, but you know that I was saying she could be a Venin at the end. I've convinced myself she isn't. But like, this is the drama that's building in this chapter is like really where it all starts.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is that this seems to be the first time that the Venin are not attacking civilians. They're just letting the civilians escape. Which feels different, doesn't it? Like when they went to Ressen, they like drained the ground and drained the civilians. And what do you think changed?
It seems they have like an objective at this point. So I don't know if they obviously had a communication between all of them, because everyone is like waiting until Violet arrives and see what's going to happen between Violet and Theophany. So there is a goal. Violet has to turn to the Venin side. But then when she is not doing it, Mira is safe. Then is when chaos starts to explode everywhere else. But you can see that now there's like a strategy, and there is this kind of like an alliance between Venin, because Theophany, she was helping Berwin, and somehow, or at least he was doing something there to please Berwin. But we still don't know who else is there in charge, because it seems that maybe these two had different boss.
Yeah, she doesn't like... So Theophany and Berwin, no, I think they might be siblings. You know, not actual siblings, but I think they both report to the same person.
The sensation, Maven.
Maven,
Maven.
General Daramore. Like, I genuinely think it's General. It's got to be General Daramore. He's like the only one that has a name that could be bigger than her, unless, I mean, we'll get to it. She's like, unless it's a god, unless it's like Malak. But I don't think so, because I think Malak likes Violet, as we'll see in this bit. Yeah. I think you're right. I think it shows that they're doing something way more tactical. It shows that possibly this mission is purely to get hold of Violet, and they don't actually care about Drathus. They just used Drathus as the tool. Drathus will stand if you come, because she never promised that Mira would stay alive, which we find out.
Yeah.
Right. The bit that has everybody talking about Oryx. Molvic has been spotted along the cliffs, flying south away from the conflict.
Yes. The very first time when I read this, I thought that this is when he was stealing the eggs. So I was convinced that Arik took the 6 eggs and then he just run away with this. But,
I was the same.
Yeah.
But we know what he was doing.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are worried that this means he's going to become the Venin brother. But we now think that he's just going to collect the Zelnin army because they went to the wrong port. They actually went to the port of Sudra. So Sud is the French word for south, which makes sense that the port of Sudra would be in the south. Also, the fact that they're coming from the Isle Kingdoms makes sense that they're in the south. We get confirmation of this later in, I think it's chapter 60, isn't it? That Molvic is bringing back, Molvic and Oryx, he says, I think the prince is bringing back the spare. 10 calls him the spare. Is bringing back the army. So I do think that is all he was doing. He knew that he foresaw that the army was going to go to the wrong port and he went to collect them. I don't think it's an accident, though, this. Rebecca Yarros has 100% put this in to make us suspect Oryx is the second brother. And Garnet, she's just starting a bookstagram, Bookish at the Beach. She has sent us a huge email of all her theories. She firmly believes that Oryx is the brother. So I wanted to explain some of the evidence that she has.
Okay.
There'll be way more in the email than I can remember. First thing, which I do agree with, Xaden's reaction is not bad enough for it to be one of his friends. If it was Bodhi, if it was Garrick, her argument is that he would be more either shocked, angry, especially if it was Bodhi because of Tyrandor. Although I do think when he says to Sigel, "You saw what happened; it's the only way," I think he's possibly talking about, well, you saw what happened with Bodhi. Anyway, number one. Number two, this one is going quite far back. She thinks Alec, do you remember Holden's twin brother?
Yes.
Was or is Venin. She says, and this is your argument as well, Garrick is way too big to be bullied by someone, that Xaden has to go in and save him. Well, she thinks that Alec was Venin at that point, but Xaden didn't have an alloy-hilted dagger. And because we know the princes know about Venin, we know possibly you could make the link that they would possibly try and channel, at least Alec. And then going back to the fables of the barons, she thinks that Oryx is the third brother that's alluded to in the fables who overcame his jealous sibling.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. Our main argument against Oryx being the brother is this 5 months, isn't it? He says Xaden says after watching me struggle for 5 months.
Yes.
She counters that by saying that Xaden could easily have just read his mind, because we now know that Xaden can read minds. We don't think he can just read intentions. And Xaden could have just read his mind, seen that Oryx was a precog, that his precog abilities had seen Xaden channel. And he was with them on all the Isle Kingdoms. So she's saying that 5 months thing could easily just be countered by the fact that he is a mind reader. He gets a broken mirror. This is loads of evidence. He gets a broken mirror from Zanal.
Yes.
And that broken mirror can symbolize like a broken soul or the fact that he will change as a person.
Yeah, he caught himself with that mirror as well.
Yeah. And just like picking back up on the heading south, we do get confirmation that Xaden was in a field south of Dorathus. So there's a lot of evidence there that could... And before I read all this, I was like, no, it's not Auric. I still don't think it's Auric. I'm sorry, Garnet. But I do love like all the threads, and it could very well be. Like, I wouldn't be surprised now if these are one of like a regular commenter on our reels, Deb. She'll be really upset because she really loves Auric, and she wanted me to prove that it wasn't Auric, and I was just like, it's fine. He didn't know for 5 months. But yeah, there are quite a lot of threads.
I mean, I see it where she's coming from, but I still not believe that there's Auric, because the father Xaden wasn't that shocked when he saw the new brother Venin. It's simple because he's a Venin now, and one of the things that he was saying when he was channeling is the freedom of not feel pain, not feel anything. So even if he sees this Garrick of body, he won't be kind of like a heartbroken or anything, because right now he's a Venin, so he's not feeling that. But he feel like a little bit of anger at that point when he said that I can't believe that he does this after seeing me struggling for 5 months. And as far as I know, Eric doesn't know that Xaden is a Venin, at least not officially. If I see them with the power, that is something that, is
I think he would know. He's also incredibly observant. Like, we get that right from the beginning. He sees things. He gets it. I didn't tell you the best piece of evidence that she gives. Molvic, the dragon name. We kind of thought, no, that doesn't mean anything. But Basgaiath, she was like, break that up, and it means 2 different things. Like, I think it's blood wing or something. I can't remember what it is.
I think it was like Skull of Death or something like this.
Maybe. Something like that. Wing of Death. Death wing. It's Death wing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Well, Mol is mole.
Okay.
And Vic means like son of. So son of for mole. But also Vic, as it could also be victorious. So she's saying he could be victorious mole, which means she thinks that he is going in there. And this is kind of like the only way I will accept he's the Venin, is if he sees that that's the only way that he can win this, or that we can win this, is if he goes in as a mole and he brings him down from the inside. One thing that I would add to this theory is like it does get him out of the way again. Like it gets him far enough away from Violet that he can't be too helpful in books 4 and 5. Otherwise it's just going to be too easy because his power is insane. I think she also talks about how Jack Barlow doesn't think this is a signet. So he says in Kaori's classroom in like chapter 8 of Fourth Wing that he's not the one that thinks precognition is a thing. So that means that signet has been erased from history, which possibly means that Melgren has them killed. Anybody that becomes a precog and manifests, he has them killed, which would make sense because he doesn't want anyone to... He became general... Like the day that Augustine Melgren manifested his signet changed the warfare for the Kingdom of Navarre. It could be that he has anyone that admits or kind of shows they're a precog, has them killed.
Well, to be honest, I thought when I saw what he was, his signet, that he was one of the first 6, one of the signets that it just comes once every generation, like Shadows, Lightning, Garrick with a distance welder.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I don't know how to take it because in the end it's Rebecca Yarros. You make it so obvious for one thing and they comes with something completely different.
And then you read it again and you're like, oh yeah, you can. I think she's kept the options so open. But I was like, no, it's not Auric. And now I'm like, if it's Auric, I can see why.
Yes.
So thank you, Garnet, for pointing those things out. He's still not my Venin brother, but I do really like it. And I wouldn't be surprised now if he is.
had to admit, when we start with all of this, I was 100% body was the Venin. Then when we did this Instagram live episode, I was maybe 60% there was body. Now I'm 50%.
Really?
Could be Garrick or body.
How interesting, because I think in this chapter there are a few things that make it quite obvious that it's Bodhi. And on your train of thought around Rebecca Yarros not making it so obvious, it would be so obvious. This is where I am probably starting to get worried that we just fell into the trap of the obvious. But there's some things in this chapter that are like, yeah, it's Bodhi.
No, precisely because I was thinking like that. Now I'm thinking, yeah, it's because this and this is already combi body.
Yeah.
But yes, we have like really strong hints. They can go to one or the another one. I guess all depends how you want to interpret it. Is a pointing out to one or the other one.
Yeah.
But it's more about, okay, just because I think it's no body doesn't mean that automatically has to be Garrick, because then, yeah, could be somebody else that we have completely no clue that who else could be that. Could be, yeah, Arik, for example.
Yeah.
But today, in these chapters, there's a couple of things that made me think, I don't think is body. But if it's body, because there's an option here in these chapters as well, there's going to be some conditions, but we were talking about it later on in this episode.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we carry on? So Violet says, my grip tightens on the pommels, and I can't tell if it's Ten's rage or my own stampeding through my veins, but it tramples every last ounce of her fear, her doubt, and her guilt until she is nothing but wrath. The only time we hear about wrath is with Dune, the wrath of Dune. So I think this again like shows that Violet has the favour of the gods with her, and Dune is with her, and clearly Malak is with her as well.
Yeah.
I think they're fighting over her, and possibly the first time round. You know how we had Malak and Dune? Sorry, I know it was Amari and Malak. I wonder if they were fighting over a lightning wielder as well.
The thing that's still not sure about Violet is we call her the lightning wielder, but Felix said that she's not a lightning wielder, she's a power wielder, and lightning is the way that she feels more comfortable to manifest.
She's definitely not a lightning wielder, but we just call her
I wonder
one.
if there's other stuff that Violet can do, because she's pure power, so what else she would be able to wield?
She's definitely not a lightning wielder, is she? She's a power wielder.
Yeah.
And that's why she has no balance, because I don't know whether she's like basically just a siphon. She can burn out though, can't she? Because she gets sunburned.
Just to be a human.
Yeah. But she can channel all the power. It's just power. It's nothing but power.
Yeah.
Theophanie's had a wardrobe change. She's wearing a scarlet long-sleeved tunic and pants. So not robes this time. Isn't it weird that that's mentioned?
Yeah, it's strange because I started to think that maybe the Venin has like a rank according to the wardrobe. She was wearing purple before, and we see a couple of times maybe like somebody wearing purple, but this time with this new color. So really it's not a rank, it's just what they feel.
Yeah,
maybe.
Sometimes they wear red.
Yes.
Some of them are wearing red leathers, aren't they?
Yeah, in Iron Flame there was one, the one the Andarna torch, and
They just wear what they want.
yes. In the end it seems that it doesn't mean anything. Unless maybe she had a promotion. We didn't know anything about it.
Maybe.
Yeah, because she was saying, or she would say during this episode, that she wanted to like prove herself to him, to the big boss, that she right about the balance. They can just stick to one side, to the Venin side. So I don't know if maybe the big boss said, okay, prove me and you get promoted.
Yeah.
She was already wearing the uniform.
Yeah.
But definitely caught my attention when we saw this tunic or these new clothes with this specific color, because then Violet, she was looking at Mira And then she started to say that, yeah, she had the face covered in bruises. I think she said the left arm is bleeding, that she can see there's dripping. She can't see exactly where the wound comes from because the leather is covering the wound inside. So she's really bad. And then she said as well, I can't tell anymore because the color of the clothes camouflage with the blood. So like she can't see very well because that contrast. And then I was like, interesting. So this tunic as well is camouflaging red color. There's the color of the blood. So does it mean there's camouflaging something else as well? Maybe Mira's red eyes or something. And then I started thinking, is it maybe possible that in that time when Mira was with Theophany,
She couldn't shield.
Theophany make her channel from the ground, turning into an assassin just for a little bit.
An initiate.
An initiate, yes, sorry. And the robes of that clothes is camouflaging the red eyes from violet distance because I can see that very well. And I'm thinking of this because it seems that Theophany, she was obsessed with Lilith, and maybe because she couldn't turn Lilith on her side, be her assassin. Maybe Mira, because Mira is like a young version of her mom, bring all this stuff, and then she is just doing something like this. I was thinking it will be maybe, I don't know, like a really good story if we find out that, yeah, we saved Mira's life. But turns out in those moments when she was with Theophany, she turned into a Venin.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Just one more thing that I had to add this. I was thinking first, and the colors and the contrast, but the thing that triggers my completely unhinged theory was when Mira was trying to say something or shouting like, no, don't save me or whatever. Even when Theophany has a blade on her neck and on her ribs as well, she says to Mira, shh, or I will kill your dragon. Why she will say that when she already has the blade on her neck, when she could kill her just like that? The dragon is quite far away from that scene.
Yeah.
But that is something that a master like Berwin, it was doing at the end, kills the dragon to make to push in the initiate to channels if wants to leave. Yeah.
So that's a really good catch. I think she would threaten to kill the dragon anyway because she knows how much riders care about their dragons. So I think even if Mira thought she was going to die, she wouldn't necessarily think Tiny would. So the threat against her dragon is a real threat. Like, she's not threatening to kill Tiny just because she wants to kill Mira. She's threatening to kill Tiny, and that's bad. That's like rage bait for Mira. My one question was, if she did channel, would she not have been able to make a really amazing shield and blast Theophany away?
I guess all depends how much you channel, isn't it? In the end, all depends how much you needed to maybe defend yourself just enough. And then she did, and Theophany just made sure that she couldn't keep going or something, just having it under control.
Yeah.
She has a lot of bruises, so she had, like, I think, the half of the face covered in bruises. She had like a necklace of bruises as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was like a big fight, a scene going on, and all those marks in Mira's body. But it's just the part when she says about the dragon, because she's already like with the blade and on her throat. So why is she going to say that?
Yeah, I like it. Also, when in the last couple of days, how many times have I asked you, are we sure Tiny's alive? Because there's so many things here that, like, Tiny doesn't wake up, and then there's something about, there's an epigraph about dragons being vulnerable in the next one. Riders making them vulnerable. And I just kept saying, didn't I? Are we sure Tiny is alive? And you are assuring me that Tiny is alive. So we'll just have to see.
This was from our live event on Instagram that we read the whole 100 pages, the last ones. I remember when Tern comes to pick Violet, Violet's asking, and Tern said that he's in bad condition, but he will survive or something like this, unless that maybe Tern is lying to make sure that Violet is focused on the battle, but then that will mean that Mira is dead.
Not necessarily. If she replaced, if she did channel.
Yes.
Maybe that's the interesting thing. Or we know that when you lose the bond of a dragon, you have to replace that with magic.
Mm-hmm.
What if at the point at which Tiny died or is dying, Sloane was replacing that power with Dain's power?
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't feel the cutoff, but she would have to feel like some kind of withdrawal from it from now on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it's like you've got to replace that power permanently. I would imagine it is. Or whether it's just you've got to replace it at the point at which the dragon is dying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm not convinced that Tiny is alive.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it in book 4.
No, it's going to be a next episode. Well, I mean, Tern.
No, I'm not convinced. I'm still not convinced. Not by 10.
Yeah.
We know that dragons lie.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a bit in here which talks about all Theophany has to do is set her hand to the ground and we're all dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, do they have to actually touch the ground to drain it? I didn't think they did, but this does suggest that they do. And if they do, does that further support the theory that Bodhi is the brother? Because he's crouched down later.
Yeah, I think that they had to touch whatever they want to absorb the magic. So if I was the ground, they actually had to touch the ground.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it has to be with the hands or just if they're touching with their feet, they can just grab them from there too.
Bare feet.
Yeah.
Flip-flops, just slip a flip-flop off.
The toes just on top of the flip-flops.
Gross.
Yeah, Benny had really long toes.
Ugh.
Precisely for that.
Just like really long toenails.
Yeah.
Gross. So there's a bit of a conversation, and I feel like we get a bit of confirmation that Theophany did want Andana, because she's like, and yet you seem to have lost your Irid. How inconvenient. Xaden arrives. They all arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Why are Xaden's shadows drifting south? Away, like they're going away from Xaden again. This is like the second or third time this has happened. Mm-hmm. We know he still has his shadows, so I'm just not sure I fully understand the shadows like fleeing and moving away from him all the time.
Yes. So when I was reading this part, is Xaden wants to move forward to Violet. Dratos is in the opposite way, so Dratos in south. The shadows start to like pointing out south, and I think there's a point when Xaden is looking to the city, and I think Violet noticed, and it's like he knows that he should be there, but he won't be there because he wants to be with me, and the shadows is like pushing the Dratos.
Tell him where to go.
Yes, but the thing is, I'm not sure if it's because maybe at this point the shadow is like taking over control of him, and it's just maybe expressing what he deeply desired. He wants to help the people. He really wants to be there because he knows something really bad is happening in Dratos, but he wants to be with Violet. So it's maybe the shadows telling him where he wants to go, because there's a part when say he should be there. But it seems that as the shadow have like a conscience, or they have like a kind of like an identity, and that's why he always has to be in control. He doesn't like to lose control with the shadows, because maybe if he's not in control of the shadow just can come and do whatever. And maybe I think when Lynx is getting the shadows, he feels so terrified about it, because maybe he feels that he's not controlling the shadows.
Yeah, because I think Xaden says, doesn't he, that the first time he manifested his shadows was like really hard.
Yes. So at this point, I'm not sure if it's because the shadow is telling him, you need to be there, we need to help the people, or this is maybe just the first call from Berwin to Xaden, and the shadow, the first thing is answering
Responding
to that
to
call. Yes.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, it could be both.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to the brother chat. There is so much, like so many references to brother, sibling, etc. in this part. We definitely get confirmation that Jack is the brother that Berwin wants.
Yeah, the one that Theophany was talking about.
Yeah. And we've been wondering why they care so much about Jack, haven't we? Like, why Jack? I think that they both want him dead. I don't think Berwin necessarily really needs Jack anymore. He's just worried that he's blabbing too much. He's like the Bodhi of the Venin world. But we get confirmation here that two Venin with the same sage call each other siblings.
Yes.
Which mean, and Theophany says, hence the term sibling. And I think that, for me, means that Berwin and Theophany have the same master, and they're like sibling rivalry competing for his favour.
Yes.
I don't know if this means that Berwin is in fact older than we suspect he is. Which, like, there's been a question over whether it's Naelin, whether it's Grandad Ryerson, whether it's, like, anyone else?
For me,
yes,
for me, Berwin is either Xaden's grandfather or Tekaro's. But the problem about Xaden's grandfather is because Berwin says to Xaden, I know you more than you think. And Xaden's grandfather, if he turned into a Venin, it would be when Fenrirson was a baby. Because we're talking about when he was 20. Actually, Fenrirson was alive when he was a cadet.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not Takaris and the granddad. Remember how you thought that he's hiding in plain sight, and actually he's just pretending to be Takaris. Takaris isn't a real person.
Yeah.
He is just, so it could be both.
Could be both, yeah.
The reason I like the Takaris thing is that Berwin is a dream walker, and Takaris's gift is about, like, knowing what people dream of and what makes them happy. Yeah, yes. It just feels to me like a nice.
I mean, it's something that we can be agree is there's something off with Tekaros, because Violet always talking about those impossible white teeth, all this gem that he's carrying. We know there's some gem that can give like a little boost to kind of magic as well. So maybe they're using this to hide something, like a masking rune that is just boosting with these gems. So it's plus. Venin never attacked Cordian, so it's just too many things against him.
What I thought was most interesting about this conversation, where she mentions Berwin, Xaden looks surprised or is, like, shocked. And that's just a throwaway comment from Violet. But this is the first time that Xaden actually finds out. If you take a step out of, Xaden's been dreaming about Berwin, right? But Xaden thought that he killed him.
Yes.
All this time, now he finds out Berwin's alive.
Yes, since Iron Flame.
Yeah.
So I believe for him it's a shock that he's actually there.
I think he's realizing that Berwin was actually showing him what was going to happen in the future, not just, like, entering his dream.
Random nightmare. Yeah.
And I think that's possibly he's also realizing Berwin is a dreamwalker at this point, and he's, like, doing all of that because it's not just a recurring nightmare now. It's actually a deliberate thing. Garrick arrives. Garrick dismounts with slower steps than usual. He is drained, isn't he?
He crossed the continent twice with dragons, plus later on with Jack. So it's too much for... This is
just the beginning. We've not even had Imogen's POV chapter yet, have we?
Yes.
Anyway, the end of the chapter. Theophany is giving Violet a bit of a lesson in Venin. The first thing that she needs to learn is that they're very careful with their words, kind of like Fae. We'll see this in Quicksilver in a few weeks. And the second thing is that they also lie. She draws the blade across Mira's neck and slits her throat. Oh my God, the first time I read this, I was like, You hadn't got there yet. So I was like, oh my God, I didn't know. And I knew that Quinn died. So I already, it had been spoiled. I'd like seen it somewhere. I didn't mind because I don't actually mind when I get spoiled on books. And sometimes I'm going to get some hate mail for this. Sometimes I'm like so impatient to find out what happens. I just Google it. I didn't do that with this though. I did unfortunately see that Quinn died before she did.
Yeah.
And I was angry then. I was not angry because I've been spoiled. I was angry because why
nobody mentioned the Mira
was like,
too?
Why do we care so much about Quinn? And obviously, like, we care about Quinn. I still cry. I cry every time I hear Quinn's death. But at the time, I was like, I don't really know Quinn. Like, of all the people to die, like, that's probably not the worst, is it?
It's a really sad death, but then you're not like so invested in the character
it's
neither.
Sad because you're in Imogen's POV and you, like, Rebecca Yarros has written it so convincingly that you believe your best friend is dying. And that's why it's sad. It's not because it's Quinn. And I was like, why didn't anyone spoil this one for me? Because I'm shocked. And I honestly, like, nobody survives the neck slit, do they?
Yeah, I remember the very first time when I was reading that too, for me was, that's it. Mira's gone. Because it was expecting that somebody important in this book will die. But then I remember that Brennan was there. I was like, oh, wait. Brennan is here, so he might be able to do something. But yeah, first when I was reading that specific part, the end of this chapter, that's it. Mira's gone.
I think I had to go and do the school run after that part as well. I think I was like, I'll just finish this chapter, then I'll go get the boys from school. And I was like, no. So I spent that whole time thinking that she was dead. But I do also remember thinking when she was saved, kind of like, how did I let that happen again? Because there's a bit in chapter 11 where you think Turner's dead. And then, like, he's not, obviously. Then there's a bit in the kitchens in Hedotus where you think Riddick's dead. He's not, obviously. And then there's this bit where you think Mira's dead, and she's not, obviously. And I was starting to get a little bit of, like...
Nobody dies in this.
After this, I did start to get a bit of, like, safety fatigue. You know how, like, switch off for 30 seconds if you've not read Twilight. But if you've not read Twilight, like, it's about time. Nobody dies in Twilight, and I just get this like, I wish people more. It's just not real. Whereas Rebecca Yarros is known for like making the war real, and nobody close to us has died yet, and it did feel like everyone's just a bit too safe. So I got a little bit of safety fatigue, and then Quinn dying like definitely brought me out of that. But like I said again, just because you're in Imogen's POV, not because she was a major character. She's a major character for Imogen, not for Violet.
Like a little sister.
She helped her with some runes.
Memoirs of Luzbel. She loved him. She lost him. And he came back. But wasn't completely him. She feared him. She fought him. But she fell for him. Memoirs of Luzbel. Now available on Amazon.
Okay, chapter 59.
Epigraph.
It was not without risk that the first dragons bonded humans, for though they clearly hold the power, their bonded riders made them the one thing they could not tolerate: vulnerable. Many dragons suffered the loss of their bonded riders in the name of self-preservation. The Sacrifice of Dragonkind by Major Deandra Naveen. This is the second epigraph from this book. The first one was chapter 17 in Iron Flame.
Yes.
And it talks of the losses of the ancestral hatching grounds and the civilians who didn't make it through the continent-wide migration. So this whole book feels a little bit negative. It feels like, oh, this happened and like everybody's sacrificing and this is bad. So I just wanted to like think about a bit about what it meant. Did it mean that the dragons killed their own riders so they weren't so vulnerable? And that's why the riders and the dragons didn't survive?
It's how it seems like, isn't it?
Self-preservation.
Yes. But I was thinking about it as well. It was just weird that, okay, they start to feel this bond, and then the dragon start to feel the human, thing inside. They don't like it. And then they just kill their own rider and suffer the loss of the rider. But then they prefer the suffering they try and avoid, and they're causing it themselves, killing the rider. But then I remember that dragons, they normally live more than 200 years, definitely more than 100. And obviously, if you had that kind of bond, that kind of link with a human, then maybe it will die as an average 80 years. And you bonded this human since the human was maybe 20. That means that maybe for the dragon, it's going to be 60 years. And then if the human dies because it's too old, the dragon might die as well.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're talking about like when they start, and the very first times when they start to just discovering how the bond was working between dragon and rider, when they start to say this, and they were like, oh, well, no, I don't want to die in 60 years, so cutting from the root.
Cut it now, better cut it now. Yeah, weird. No, I think also it makes them vulnerable in battle, doesn't it? Because they're trying to keep a rider on the back, or they're trying to protect a rider.
Yeah.
Because they don't all have saddles. So I think a dragon would be able to fly faster, would be able to turn quicker, would be able to do a lot more in battle without a rider.
Yes, and also if we see what's going on here, for example, Tarn is flying all this to save Mira, that's Violet's sister. If he had no feelings at all, he would say, well, it's more important for me that you're still alive than your sister. So sorry for Mira, but she's no priority now. Yeah. But now he knows that Mira is important for Violet, and he is doing it.
Yeah, I also, we get this part in this chapter around how Violet's trying to say dragons protect dragonkinds, and he's like, do not lecture me. Like,
yes.
So Mira collapses, she's had her throat slit, and Violet says, Malik, please, no, in that voice. And again, he listens to her. She says, you can't have her, I whisper up to Malik, and I swear the clouds darken slightly in acknowledgement, or maybe mocking, as two reds approach from the south at tremendous speed. If this isn't confirmation that she's, like, in with Malik.
I mean, we know that two reds is Dain and Sloane, but, yeah, this is the second time, I think, that we saw, like, a kid when we're losing somebody important. The first one, I think, was with Reddock, when they were on the island. They was saying as well, no, you can't have it or something, but then Reddock was fine. I can't remember if... but maybe in Iron Flame.
I think the first one was Liam, when Jack stabs him.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure she says then.
Yeah.
There's several times, anyway, where Malik has not taken...
So we see another trend that somebody's about to die, and then somehow Violet is dead, and then it doesn't happen. She said no to Malik, and then Malik maybe just given time. It's not that say like, yeah, okay, you can have it. And be like, no, I give you a couple more days.
Took Liam.
Yes.
And this is where like Fourth Wing hits you in the feels, because Liam dies, and you think Liam was not going to die.
You know that I have people in Fantasía Fiel, there's our new podcast in Spanish. They say that the new brother for Xaden is actually Leon.
Well, that's bonkers. I like it, but I mean, I'd love it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it, and then the reason they give me is when they say, yeah, because Xaden said that I believe that he was there, but he's not, and he's now next to me. I was like,
He didn't
yeah,
see
but
him
he was
struggle for 5 months, and he didn't he's not been there. He would have been so much more shocked, wouldn't
Yes,
he?
but what I said when he says, I thought he was there, he was talking about Berwin.
Oh,
But
yeah.
some people get confused, and they think they're talking about the new brother. That I thought he was dead.
I get it. Okay.
I'm like, no, he's talking us about Berwin.
Yeah.
He thought he was dead, and now he's in front of him, and then he's talking about the brother.
Yeah.
I just reply, yeah, it will be good having Liam back, but that plus we saw that he was cremated by the end of Fourth Wing, and Rebecca Yaro say as well that she doesn't
He wasn't
bring.
cremated. He was buried.
I think it was
Buried
cremated
by
with
the
the
lake.
dragon.
No, he was buried by the lake.
So it could be a Venin then. He wasn't cremated. No. So after all that effort from Gary bringing Jack to Theophany tried to kill him, but they failed. And then Xaden says take him back to Skayath, because obviously if they want Jack dead, it's because he knows something they don't want us to know. I just wonder what it could be, because I think they knew Jack was telling too much because Panche, he might be in the interrogation, and maybe Panche was giving the information to Berwin. This guy is saying this. And then Berwin like, shit, that is something that I shouldn't say, or something that he shouldn't say. And then they're just trying to, make sure that he's going to be silenced forever.
So the things we know that he said, only initiates bleed.
Mm-hmm. Sage and Maven can be in Basgaya, and you or not, you won't notice.
We won't notice.
Mm-hmm.
The wards don't work in the way that the dragons expect you to believe they do.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Well, that's the thing that we know that he has said on the page, but God knows what else he's been saying during the interrogation.
Yeah, so we know he knows about feather tails.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what he knows maybe about the weapon that can defeat them, or the cure or something.
Yeah.
He knows all that.
Well, when he was asking to Violet, ask me about this, ask me about that.
Yeah. It's like, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Weird.
Ask me about what Berwin told me not to say to anybody.
Yeah, ask me about what Bowen's favourite dinner is.
Chocolate cake as well.
Probably. Psoriasis.
Yeah.
And then Bodhi sees Dain coming, and he's like, how much are we trusting Atos these days? And Xaden is like, not enough to have seen that.
Yeah, so Dain knows now that Garrick is a distance wielder, and he will know later on that Imogen, she is a, how we call it, stone wielder, earth wielder. So,
yeah. Earth wielder. I don't know. Xaden doesn't trust him. Isn't that interesting? Because Xaden can read minds.
Yes, so maybe Xaden is giving us some hints here that Gary's signet is something really sensitive that Dain shouldn't know.
I don't think he would trust anyone to know that, though, because he didn't even tell Violet, did he? And this is why we didn't think that in the end. This is why we thought Auric was the distance wielder, because Garrick.
Xaden said that he doesn't know or haven't been a distance wielder in 100 years.
Yeah.
And later on, are you mad I lied to you?
Well, then he said, I've never lied to you as well. So, like, both can't be true. He lied twice. Both can be true. He lied twice. He's a liar.
Yeah.
It's morally grey. Protecting his best friend. Also a thing.
Yeah, but we're talking about this as well. That he doesn't need to say that there's not been a distant wielder for 100 years or whatever.
Yeah, he could just be like, no, it's not that.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not my second signet.
I'm not a distant wielder. Yeah, that's it, period. What was the need to just lie just because?
He's just lying for the hell of it.
Yeah.
And then later he's like, no, I've never lied to you.
Yeah, that's a lie.
That's a lie. So Sloane arrives with a parcel from Auric, special delivery. he sent her specifically, though. He didn't give it to anyone, did he? Otherwise, he'd have just given it to Dain.
Mm-hmm.
He gave it to Sloane because he knew that she needed to be there to save Mira.
Yes.
His signet is certified insane.
Yes. The best thing is this is just him trying to maybe controlling that signet, because that in the first year they just barely have control about this kind of stuff. So we don't know exactly how it works yet. And I'd be curious in the next book if maybe Auric is going to stay around, but maybe he's going to say, well, I can control it yet. The flashes come to me in random times. I don't know how to trigger it, or, it has to be something to stop him. Otherwise, he will be just too useful for Violet. So something has to happen. Either he is the Venin at the end and then he is just away or everything, or he's going to be around and then he's not going to be able to use his signet.
Yeah.
Because it's
or
random.
He's going to be on his own secret mission, like somewhere else.
Yes. Or maybe he's being called because something happened to Holden and he needs to go back as a prince. So, representative of the crown, because now it's in war with
I don't think he'd do it, though. I think he's the same as Bodhi. I think he'd be like... I think actually he's worse than Bodhi, because he's specifically said, hasn't he, I'll watch my family fall or something like...
The family business just burn.
Before he takes up the mantle. I think he's going to be the new Melgren.
Yeah.
For Erasure, though. Also, we've got to not forget that there's a war between Navarre and the rest of Navarre and Tyrandor at this stage as well. So you are going to need to have two armies.
Yes.
But this is clever because the best thing to do is to break up the allies. The cleverest thing to do in war is to cause a war between the allies. And that's what's happening in Navarre right now.
Yeah. So at this point, Violet is really angry with Auric because first he just disappeared going to the south with no reason at all. And then he sent Sloane to a war zone just to give his own parcel, his own...
Yeah, because it's addressed to him.
It's addressed to him, so she's like, what the fuck, what he's doing? But then when Violet sees Sloane, oh my God, now is the chance that Sloane, you can do the chance here, because Brennan is trying to mend Mira and he's running out of power.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Why does the High Priestess send the mail to Auric?
That is something curious, because then I think is this the pattern where it says from a server of Dune to another one, and this was addressed to Auric.
He's a servant of Dune.
Yes. Oh, how?
Does he just go to the temple a lot, maybe?
Maybe. Obviously, it doesn't seem that he is touch or dedicated or anything.
Well, no.
But he's a servant of Dune.
Yeah, he could just prefer her temple.
Yeah.
It's odd though, isn't it?
Well, in the essence, religion, and I guess you decide to believe in whatever you want to believe.
Yeah, and he just prefers Dune, maybe.
Yes.
But again, a bit weird. Yeah.
Yes. So Violet asks for help to Sloane, and then she accepts. Then it's kind of like a pushing that don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And then he's trying to guide her. Then she put the hand on Dain's wrist, and then her eyes flared. And the first thing that she says is someone like you shouldn't have this much power. Dain says, well, good for Mira that I do. Now the question is, why Dain had this much power? We know he was in Second Wind before. We know something dodgy is happening in Second Wind because we're seeing some Venins coming from there. But they say they're completely under control of, at that time, Colonel Athos, Dain's father. So we start to think that maybe there's some experiments going on the Second Wind, and that maybe they created a super soldiers or something related with the Venin, because we had this book as well about the Venin and the use and medicinal stuff. So maybe they're using kind of like a steroids or something from the Venin. Or it's because Kath. We are suspicious about Kath as well. And maybe because from Fourth Wing, then says Kath channels a lot of power. So maybe because Kath is somehow linked to the Venin side and had more power. Maybe at some levels are turned. And because of that, he is more powerful as well. But he is not surprised about it. He just say, yeah, thanks for good thing for Mira.
Yeah.
So it's like he knows that.
Yeah, I think it's to do with Kath. Why does Kath have rotten breath?
Yeah.
And then I know that Rebecca Yarros is like some dragons just have bad breath.
Yeah, but she's not going to give out the clothes.
No, exactly. Exactly. I think it's to do with Kath. I still honestly believe that he's going to be ultimately good. He's on a redemption. He's going to kill Kath and sacrifice himself to save Xaden. Not Violet, because that's obvious. Xaden. So it could be to do with this extra experiment, or it could be the fact that Kath. I don't think he's Venin. He's definitely not Venin. I have seen crazy, wild theories that Atos is a Venin. Atos Senior is a Venin, and he was always a Venin and had Dain when he was Venin. So Dain is Venin offspring.
Yes.
Which could also be true. Another option.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't necessarily have red eyes. You wouldn't necessarily have any of that. However, he is drained. He has the handprints, doesn't he?
Yeah.
On his arms.
That was from Jack when they were in the Waterstone. Yes.
Yeah. But a Venin, I guess if he's only half Venin, he could be drained still. Could a Venin drain another Venin? That is the question. Interesting.
I don't see why not.
No, I don't either. The line that everybody is talking about.
Yes. So let me put you into a scene. Sloane is grabbing Dain's wrist. Then she puts the hand in Brennan's neck. She is looking something, but then Dain says, "Eyes here." And then she looks to Dain's face. So a lot of people say, oh, this is the same way, obviously, Dain is in love with Sloane, or Sloane is in love with Dain. So it's because it's telling look at me, eyes here. But for me, was curious what she was looking, because the last thing that she was maybe paying attention was Brennan's neck. And then I was thinking, is it possible there's something else there that caught her attention? Maybe another rune or something. And then she was just looking at that. And then they were like, hey, eyes here. Look at me. And
I like what you're doing here. I like that you're looking for other things. But we get confirmation that there's no rune on his neck. So Violet's looking for runes as well. And we get confirmation there. So I think he's giving her the strength. I think this is not Sloane, I think, is attracted to him but doesn't want to be. It feels very and there's a lot of people saying that this is the Violet and Xaden story happening again. So you've got a third year wing leader, first year. The wing leader is responsible for the death of their brother. While it's not Xaden that's responsible for the apparent death of Brennan, it's his dad, and there's history repeating itself. So Sloane is Violet and Dain is Xaden. So it's a lot of parallels there. But I think the eyes here is Dain likes her. There's several things that have happened so far in the run up to this point that we've pointed out in our previous deep dives that make it show that Dain has feelings for Sloane. I think he's wanting to keep her focused so that she doesn't think she's Venin. She doesn't think because she's stressed, isn't she, about being a siphon, because she believes the siphon is just the same as a Venin. So yeah, this is 100% Dain being.
No, I was thinking right now what you're talking. So it seemed that Sloane was distracted. You say that yes, there's no rune and his neck, Brennan's neck, because Violet is looking for that. The other thing that could call Sloane attention, if I had not the sign, maybe the touch. Maybe when she was touching Brennan, it was maybe too cold, like corpse cold.
Oh, creepy.
And then she was like, shit, why is he so cold?
It's actually
Like,
dead.
yeah.
Still dead. Yeah.
it's a corpse.
But that's gross. Maybe like zombie Brennan.
Yeah.
Gross.
I mean,
Are zombies cold?
yes, because they're dead. That's the
Yeah.
point of being a zombie. You're
Do
dead.
zombies not have any blood?
No.
I don't know.
I mean, they have blood, but it's not running. That's why
It's
they're
cold
cold.
blood.
Yeah.
Like an alligator.
But yeah, right after this, there's a part when you can see there's something maybe going on between
Definitely go.
Dain and Sloane. I mean, when Sloane says to Dain, I'm going to hurt you. And then it's just like so dramatic. Like, God knows I know that.
God, I know it.
Yeah, so double sense could be because he referred when Jack was taking the power from him and that really hurts. So
No, but that's not what she's doing. She's not draining him. She's channeling the power from him.
Yes. And then the other part that obviously for everyone else, he know that he's falling for this girl and he's just getting hurt.
Yeah, because he feels like she's not going to reciprocate it. Womp womp. Also, I mean, there's the complication that she holds him responsible for Liam's death. His information did indirectly lead to that, but Atos was going to find a way, wasn't he, anyway? Daddy Atos would have found a way anyway. I think take Dain out of the picture, take Athbine out of the picture, he would have done something anyway.
I mean, we blame Dain, but the riders, they had a chance to run away and go back to Basgaya or something. They decide to
But they
stay
wouldn't,
and fight.
would they? They wouldn't
No,
have done.
but
I don't-
it was their decision to fight in the end. Yeah.
Look at us, all sympathising with Dain Atos. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it after Fourth Wing?
I mean, I'm giving just like different point of view. Doesn't mean that I completely trust and Dain.
Well, so I do think he's redeemed, and we had this big episode about it. But then I'd forgotten about Xaden saying that we don't trust him.
Yeah, not
Still.
enough for the...
Yeah, doesn't mean they don't trust him. They just don't trust him enough. But yeah,
They finally managed to amend Mira. She's fine thanks to Sloane, Dain, and Brennan. Then when they had to leave, Violet is when she's putting attention to Brennan's neck, and then she said, oh, how weird, there's no marks there.
no, it's so random. It's not random.
I mean, why? Why she say that? Why she thinks that? Doesn't mean that maybe when Sloane was doing the same to Lilith, that she had marks after that when it was taking all the power. So why is saying that how weird there's no marks?
Do you want to know my honest opinion? I honestly think that Rebecca Yarros is basically telling us it has nothing to do with the rune on Brennan's hand has nothing to do with Naelin channeling to save his life. I just honestly think that's her, because there'll be lots of theories flying around that this rune was to do with the Naelin Brennan channeling situation. I think she's trying to throw us off the scent by saying it's nothing to do with that. It's not, that rune is not because Naelin siphoned to save his life. We still don't know how Naelin did save Brennan's life. Whether it was a rune that did it, and it could be that, and it's saying, well, Naelin, actually in that situation, Naelin wasn't siphoning. Doesn't really make sense for Naelin to be siphoning. What was he siphoning? He should have been siphoning Amanda's powers. But if Brennan did die, because Brennan said that one time, didn't he, when Mira punched him in the face, do you have any idea how hard it is for me to mend myself? So the only possible explanation on the siphoning was two. There was another mender there at the time, and he was siphoning the mending powers, or he was siphoning Brennan's own powers back into him. He was like taking them out of him and putting them back in, like this kind of. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense for a siphon to be able to bring someone back to life. So the rune could still be like very much to do with that situation. But what all Rebecca Yarros is doing here is telling us that it's not a direct result of the siphoning. I think this confirms that Violet suspected it was, because she's like, that's weird. There's no rune there.
Yeah.
So she obviously suspects that it's something to do with Nailin.
Yeah.
It's weird though. It does feel like put in there deliberately to throw us off the scent.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I wonder if maybe she will remember, like, from the stone that she got from the wyvern, when they were checking if the wards were working or not. The Lily say, check the wyverns. There was, I think it was like a piece of onyx inside with that rune.
Yeah.
I wonder if one day she will find out that rune is exactly the same as the one that he has.
Well, so this is what I thought, like, for ages, didn't I? Like, immediately after reading Iron Flame and reading that bit, I was like, well, he's then a reanimated and it takes forever to do it. He woke up in caves, like they were trying to do it for ages. So I really just think this is Rebecca Yarros's like way of saying it's nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's something else. It's something more exciting. Maybe she was getting bored of people saying it was that.
Yeah, definitely something else. Yes. Okay, so mission accomplished. Mira is safe. They had to take her away so she can recover. Xaden can go to fight for Draytos. But before he leaves, he says to Buddy, remember your promise. And then Buddy says to him, yes, but I don't want your fucking province. And he said, like, yeah, noted. And he leaves. But is he just remember him that if something goes wrong, he need to make sure that he is gonna be safe, because he is next on charge of Tyrande if something happens to Xaden. Also, if something happens to Xaden, he need to protect Violet, make sure that Violet is gonna be fine when he's not gonna be there anymore.
I think it's the other way around. So I don't think it's because he needs to be Duke. Bodhi does not want to be Duke. Like, I just don't think he is going to be. I think his promise was to keep Xaden safe because of the death chain. He's keeping Violet safe because if Violet dies, Tan dies, Sigil dies, Xaden dies. Although now with the Venin thing, he wouldn't necessarily die. But I think Xaden would, wouldn't he? He'd be like sacrificing because that's what he is. I think that if you think back to chapter 56, where they were in the assembly chamber, he says, I will stand by your side. I'll be your right fucking hand for the rest of our lives. But if you want a member of our family to hold that seat, and then he points at the throne, you'd better hold your own shit together. So I think, like, he does not want to be Duke. It's quite clear. He's like, I don't want your fucking province. He doesn't want that. But I think the promise is that he was like, you are the Duke. I am the rider. I will be the rider. I will keep you safe. And I will keep Violet safe. But I'm not going to be Duke. So if you want to be, if you want a Ryerson, I mean, he's Duran, but if you want our family on that throne, you better not die. And I'll help you not die. This, for me, is possibly another hint that he's the one that goes. Because he will stay by Xaden. He doesn't want that throne. He's going to keep Xaden alive so that there's a Duke from their family. Like, I genuinely don't think he's preparing to be the next Duke. He doesn't want it. He literally says, I don't want your fucking province. And Xaden's like, noted or something, doesn't he?
Yes, but it's not about if Buddy wants or not the province. The thing is that Buddy promised to Xaden, if something happened to me, you have to protect Tyrande. You are the next in line. You have to do it in that way. He said, I don't want your fucking province. So that's like the promise that he did to Xaden. And because he cares a lot about Xaden, the thing that we need to see, if maybe in the end, just because he gave his word to his cousin, he's just going to do it for him, even when he doesn't want to do it. And there's a few things that happened in this same chapter that's pushing me to think this. Well, we'll see it in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I just don't think his promise is to become the Duke of Tyrande, to stay safe. Bodhi would not promise to keep himself safe. Bodhi would promise to keep Xaden safe.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense if Xaden said, remember your promise, and then he said, I don't want your fucking province. So
Yeah, because he's like, I will keep my promise because I don't want your fucking province. That's what he's saying. So Xaden says, keep your promise. To keep, basically, it's like to keep Violet safe. To keep Xaden safe. They're like all linked together. And then he's like, I'm going to protect her. I'm going to protect you because I don't want your fucking province. So that is like that's why I believe that it's nothing to do with saving Tyrrendor.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely convinced that he's talking about if there's danger, something happened, body needs to be safe. And then when the Theophany arrives, that is still something that even Violet says to him, you need to keep your promise.
But he's not
It's
keeping
not talking
it.
about keeping her alive. It's about he needs to be safe. That's the
No,
promise.
because he doesn't go back. He doesn't keep that promise.
Well, we'll see in the next
No, he doesn't
chapter.
go back though, does he? Because he goes to Drathus.
Yeah.
And that could be that he's like, stay with her, but remember your promise. Like, keep her safe. I just don't think he would ever promise to be Duke. Because we've seen it, he's angry. He wanted Violet to hear him in the assembly chamber in the previous chapter. He has never said he will keep Tyrrendor. He will be the Duke of Tyrrendor. He said, if you want, I am not going to be on that throne. If you want a member of our family on that throne, you better stay alive. You better keep your shit together because it's not going to be me. I'm the rider. You're the Duke. That's how it was always supposed to be. However, there is another theory from Quintessential Kitten that Bodhi promised to take care of, marry, legitimize Violet's in the same way that perhaps Xaden's great uncle did for his grandfather at some point in the past. And this sent me spiraling again. And I think I finally got a point where I think I have a preferred option for the Ryerson family tree, and I'll have to draw it up and explain it properly. But it works either way. It works regardless of whether we think Xaden and Bodhi are brothers, but Talia gave him to Fenn's sister, or because they needed him to be the rider, and someone in line was not going to be the rider. Or it works if they are just cousins, but they share the same paternal grandmother.
Yeah.
So I think what happened was Xaden's grandma had a child with Xaden's granddad, who was down as the great uncle. He died, and to keep the baby in line for the throne, she ended up with the granddad, or she was with the great uncle, or she was with the great uncle and she had an affair with the granddad. Either way, I think Fenn's sister is a half sister. They have the same mother, but their fathers are brothers.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll draw it out. I think it makes total sense. It's just really hard to explain.
We need a pause or reel to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll work on that at some point with all that free time I've got.
And yeah, pretty much we're getting to the end of this chapter with Xaden leaving, the rest of the people leaving, and now there's just Bodhi and Violet there. He said, well, now that Xaden had left, we had a problem. And then Violet, of course we do. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, now the Duke of Angst is gone. I'm going to call Xaden the Duke of Angst. Chapter 60.
Epigraph.
The only thing more stubborn than a dragon is its rider. Colonel Kaori's Field Guide to Dragonkind.
Really deep.
Yeah.
A lot of investigation this man does. You can see it right now here.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Kaori. Great story, bro.
I had to go to Dratus to come with this story. So
yeah, why was he in Dratus? I still don't think we have a reasonable answer for that. So this is just referencing Violet's stubbornness, isn't it, in the eyes of Theophany. So she won't turn, she won't channel. And that's kind of, it feels like it's just referencing that.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say about this epigraph.
No, I think as Sense of the Dragon and the Rider, they want what they wanted, and that's it. So we started this chapter with Buddy saying Tiny is not waking up, so we had a problem. What we're gonna do? So Violet says to Turn that he needs to take Tiny and take it to a safe place. Turn is just saying at the beginning that no, he doesn't want to do that, but it's the only option that Violet sees. So in the end, Turn accepts and says to Violet, just stay here, I'll be right back. So he takes Tiny and just flying away. Then Buddy is just looking all around since as Violet, they're going back to back. And he's saying to Violet, we should go for Theophany. And then she said, no, she's looking for me, so she will come here. So we had just to wait. He said, like, do you think they will work? And she said, like, yes, definitely it will. Because in the end, magic is looking for balance. And Theophany appears and says, yes, that's like the oldest rule. The magic always like balance.
Mm-hmm.
But then she says something really interesting. But once every 100 years, I think she says, things can tip to one side. So that is happening right now. It's basically what Theophany is saying. Everything's going to the sides of the Venin. And when I was reading this, I was thinking, oh, this thing they were saying before about Garrick, that Garrick can be the Venin because he's a distant wielder, the Venin has a distant wielder, so there is balance right now. But now with this information, Theophany is saying is that all the balance is tipping to the Venin. So if that was maybe something to stop Gary to go to the Venin, it's not anymore.
No, so I don't necessarily agree with that. I guess it depends whether you think, if you come back to that first, is it like the first epigraph where it says very rarely do the most powerful signets walk the earth at the same time. There's only been a few times in history, twice in history, have all 6 really rare signets walked the earth together. So it depends whether you think, because she says Violet's the exception to that. She definitely says Violet is the exception. So it's like, if they can convince Violet to channel, that is the thing that will tip the Venin tip the scales in the favor of the Venin. It's not really talking about Garrick. If you believe that it's the 6, and the 6 only come once in a century or once in a generation, it's like 2 generations really. But then each of those 6 don't have an equal and opposite. Then maybe I would believe you or I'd agree with you. But she's talking solely about Violet. She's saying, imagine my surprise when it was you. When you were the one, you were the daughter. If it was going to be anyone, I would have thought it'd be Mira.
Yeah.
If it was going to be her daughters, it wouldn't have been you. So I feel like this still does mean that Garrick could have an equal and opposite on the side. So could Xaden. Like, you've got Lynx, you've got Xaden, and then you can have, like, I don't know, Auric, you can have another one, Dreamwalker, whatever. You can have all of them equal. They have an equal balance. But the power wielder, the lightning wielder, is the one that doesn't. And it's interesting that Theophany also calls her a lightning wielder. So it's just the way that the power manifests every 100 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it confirms that Garrick isn't the one.
It's not the confirm. It's that if, for example, if Violet decides to go to the Venin side, then there won't be any balance. If there's not any balance, then Gary could be perfectly be with the Venin as well because there's no balance. It's just chaos. So when Theophany says...
Violet hasn't.
No, but when Theophany says like every 100 years, something like that, things can go to the Venin side or it doesn't have to be a balance. And this is like happening right now. So she's basically saying there's that rule that everything has to be in balance doesn't apply every 100 years. Is what she's saying.
Yeah, we've read this totally differently then, haven't we? Because what I'm thinking is, if you imagine a set of scales and you've got all the riders' signets on one side and you've got the Venin power on the other side, it's balanced. You got a Violet. She can decide where to go. If she goes on the good side, she tips it. If she goes on the bad side, she tips it the other way.
Yeah.
So I don't think it means that all this chaos happens once every 100 years. Anything can. I don't think it's like a free-for-all. I think the decision comes down to Violet. She's the weapon because she can either choose and fight for the good side and win, or she can choose to fight for the Venin side and win.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't think it means every 100 years it's a free-for-all and it's like chaos. I think it solely depends on the Lightning Wielder's decision on which side she goes on, or he goes on. And I think, obviously, in the past, it's always been the side of the good.
Yeah, but there's not been a Lightning Wielder every 100 years, isn't it? The last one was 600 years ago with the first 6.
Well, yeah, but it depends whether it's a Lightning Wielder or whether it's power manifesting in a different way. I don't think it necessarily means that there's not been a power wielder. It did make me think, like, why once every century? And if the Venin rise up this badly or this extensively every 100 years, the scribes have been really good at hiding that, haven't they?
Yeah. I definitely think that when they're talking about balance, doesn't mean exactly for every single fire wielder or ice wielder there's an award that's going to be exactly the same as Venin.
No, I agree with
I think
that.
that maybe from every 10 rider with a signet, there's going to be a one Venin that's as powerful.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And the balance is still there.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I don't, like, when I was picturing the scales, I don't mean that. I mean that the magic is in balance and Violet is the tipping point.
Yeah.
Because Violet's the only exception to that. She doesn't have a counterpart. Although she does.
She can go through whatever she wants, basically.
Yeah. It feels like she does Dreamwalker-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the bit then where Violet's trying to convince Tan to take Tiny. He's the only one that can take him. And she said dragonkind protects its own, even above a bonded rider. And he is like, do not lecture me in the laws of my kind, or you will learn how comfortable I am breaking them. And this like comes down to what we were talking about before, I think, of there being different factions of dragons who want to fight for different things. And the Empyrean is very much you protect dragons. Like, you do not protect your rider. If it comes down to a choice between another dragon and your rider, you choose the other dragon. But this is Ten clearly saying that that's not his way. He will protect Violet.
Yeah.
Whether it's because he knows Violet is more than what she is, or whether it's because he's decided that it's his last rider.
Yes.
But both him and Sigale are quite happy to break rules, aren't they?
Right. So there's something here that I find really interesting. When Stephanie arrives, Buddy, he just gets surprised because I think he was like expecting to see Theophany just flying with a wyvern, but he was just behind one of the dead wyverns on the ground. So he said, where did she come from? And the bell said that she is really fast. And then she remembered that first time in Basgaya when she disappeared. Then Theophany says, just a few of us are faster and only a few are older. So Theophany is listening to all of this conversation as well, when basically Buddy and Violet, they were just talking like kind of like a whispering, and they were like 20 feet apart. And Theophany heard everything because she is answering to Buddy. So these were like two things that caught my attention because first, who we know, they're like really fast. The first thought that come to my mind, Brennan. Because when we read Iron Flame the very first time, in the first chapter, he disappeared. So Violet, when he goes to find him, he's not there anymore. Yeah. I thought he was kind of like a distant wielder that Venin had, but no, they're really fast. That one thing. The other one that I need to start paying attention now that I'm doing my reread for third time or fourth win is who has a really good hearing. Because
Bodhi.
I was thinking as well about Buddy.
I think that's his second signet. I've heard lots of things about him being invisible. I don't think he's invisible.
Yeah, like in what moment you think that he was invisible? Well, just because he knows things.
I think is it Logan? Is he called Logan?
Mm-hmm.
Guy that's reading it and has lots of theories. I think people sent me it and then tagged him in our reel about Bodhi.
Okay.
Like, I like it. I do like it. I just think
There's not enough proof to think that he's invisible.
we know that there's sound seekers, don't we?
Yes.
We know that people can hear across distances. We know that signet exists.
Plus, we know as well that Xaden or that somebody can hear through walls because, and that scene where he didn't want to tell to Violet his second signet because they were in a
So there's always somebody better than you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I just haven't seen any evidence yet that the invisibility is a thing in this world. Maybe it is, but
camouflage like Anderna.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe it is, and I like it as a theory. It's very similar to ours. It's just that we know that sound seekers exist, and we don't know that invisibility does.
Yeah.
But there's lots of things where, like, he knows that she's doing stuff, and he knows where she is, and he knows it's like he's been following her. He could also have just been listening. Don't know.
Yeah.
So this is where we find out really that, or we get extra proof that Theophany is working for somebody bigger. So when she's talking about this every century or so, we have a chance to skew the scales in our favor. She says, and I will prove myself to him this time. Like, she's failed for the last, I don't know, she's saying few or older. So we're thinking that she's got to be like at the same time as the first six. Like, she's been around centuries.
Yes.
I feel like the only person it could be is General Daramore. I know we've talked about this already tonight, but it's got to be General Daramore, isn't it? Like, this is the General Daramore was the one that went bad the first time.
I mean, every time you say General Daramore, for me, it's like General Daramore or someone from the first six.
Yeah, like Warwick.
Warwick is really dodgy as well. Yeah.
I think Warwick is General Daramore. It's Warwick Daramore.
I'm thinking that it's the same with, Fen Ryerson and Navarre. Maybe Daramore was trying to do the right thing, and then the people from Navarre, they were the one doing the dodgy stuff.
Yeah.
And then he just carried with the full blame.
Yeah. Like, if you think about what happened in the Fables of the Baron, and you had the jealous sibling, would that have meant that maybe one of the first, like Lyra or something, she had the power of the sky, and Daramore was her brother, or like, I don't know. Or do we think that story happened before the first six? Probably happened before the first six, didn't it?
Yes, it's more like the explanation of the beginning of dragons, griffins, and Venin. So Daramore was already a Venin around, so these fables could be like something ancient.
Yeah. We don't know enough. We need to get a hold of the Fables of the Barons.
No, we need Rebecca Yarrow right here in front of us, like telling us what's going on.
No, I'm still holding out for the fact that she might one day write Fables of the Barons as like a charity book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be really good.
Although it doesn't give answers, because Violet would have the answers already. So it would be like the perfect one to do, wouldn't it? Because there'd be stuff in there, but it just wouldn't be. It's like fable mixed with truth, and all jumbled up. And Violet doesn't know enough from that book, and she's read it loads of times. So.
Yes. Another interesting part here, when Theophany says to Violet, ready to tip on the balance, and then Violet is just thinking, because at this moment, she's thinking that Theophany is a lightning wielder like her. So Violet's thinking, two lightning wielders, they just tip the balance, it will destroy everything. And then she says as well, like, shadows, like the same as shadows. So for me, it's curious, because what does it mean? Does it mean that maybe Lynx is going as a Venin as well with Xaden, they can destroy everything as well. But it's maybe a hint that Lynx is going to turn into a Venin, or why she mentioned the shadows here as well, like plural.
It could be, because we think that Lynx manifested to be Xaden's balance, and Xaden thinks that. But Xaden hasn't done bad things with that magic yet. Yeah. He's destroying the Venin, who appear to be bad. They're set up to be bad, aren't they? So yeah, I think it could mean that Lynx is there, or there's another chance that this is going to be out of balance, because it appears that Xaden is. So magic believes, well, Xaden's channeled. He's stolen the magic. So we need someone else will manifest it. But actually, they're both on the good side. So it's just tipping the scales in that favor.
Yeah. Another interesting part right here in all these pages. Here, Theophany is looking at Body, and then it's like criticizing Violet, like, interesting companion that you choose here. And they says to Body, I know, like, tired of being always like the second one right after your cousin. And he's just like, like,
I'm not the one
pushing.
trying to prove myself.
Yes. But something interesting that she says here is that you don't have to wait any longer. The crown of Tyrande will be yours soon. So basically saying that Xaden will turn into a Venin, maybe because at this time Xaden is with Berwin and Theophany knows that. But again, Tyrande, crown, and now it's saying that you don't have to wait any longer for that. That crown is gonna be yours. But it says Tyrande doesn't have a crown. But this is the second reference that we say there's a crown. The Tyrande is going to have a crown. So she's saying that Body is the one who's going to have that crown. So he's going to be like the king of Tyrande. And then Marin is saying to Kat, he will choose you. You will be the queen of Tyrande. So I start to put the pieces together. The Body and Catriona, they're going to be ending together. But then, if a Body is going to be the king, that means that he can't turn into a Venin. He needs to stay. And this is one of the reasons that it makes me think that that Venin at the end is not going to be Body. Because if Theophany is saying here, you're going to be the king, or the crown is going to be yours, it's because she's seen it. So this is one of the things that made me think that it's not going to be Body. But also here, it's like Theophany pushing Body, like making him feel again that he's not good enough, that he's always second behind Xaden. It's just like trying to push him to channel as well. So if he is the one who channels, I think it's because Theophany. Because then when he's trying to counter the signet, he can't do it. So it's like two things in a row that make you feel that he's not good enough. He is just, second.
Yeah, it would be like the straw that broke the camel's back, though, right? It wouldn't be the only reason he channeled.
Yes, but it's just too many things going on right here in these lines in front of Violet. And we think that he feels something for Violet, and then he feels that maybe he's failing in front of Violet. So I'm thinking as well, if... and sometimes I say it can't be Body, but as well, if it's Body, the one who's going to be the Venin, I think it's going to be because Theophany was pushing. So Theophany will be his sage. But if Theophany is there, what does it mean? That he doesn't have a sage and he has to wait for another one to come?
I think he becomes the sage.
Or he just goes rogue because he doesn't have a sage to, to keep pulling to the dark side.
That's why there's so many rogue Venin. Yeah, a really interesting question. What happens if the sage or the maven? But it's their mate. She's a maven, isn't she? She's not a sage, but
but the master, basically, to make it clear. So if the master is there and they make it to go to the dark side, but they had nobody to teach, to learn from the Venin side.
What would happen in Star Wars in that situation? What happens if you're Padawan?
I think you have to learn all by yourself. So eventually you will turn into a Jedi in this case, but it will take you longer if you have a master.
Well, you get adopted by someone else. Because they can sense you, can't they?
The difference in Star Wars in this is that it seems the person that make you turn, you are linked to this person. When you are a Jedi, somebody comes to teach you, anybody. So you don't have like a special bond in that. It's just master and student. Simple as that, and you can change. here, because Berwin is linked to Xaden, Xaden can't even kill him, can't do anything about him. It's like he had to obey to Berwin. So we see this a strong bond here.
Yeah.
But if his body, the one who turned into a Venin, and Theophany was the person responsible, the Venin responsible about this, what's going to happen?
I think another sage just comes to find them, because he says that, like, mavens and sages can sense initiates and asims.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they know to go and give them guidance. So I think if your sage dies, or your maven dies, another one would just find you.
So maybe he would just go to Berwin.
Yeah,
because
closest one.
Feel Theophany. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we get confirmation, and we were convinced, weren't we, before Onyx Storm, that Bodhi liked Violet.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get confirmation here, because Theophany says, he says, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, protecting Xaden, protecting Tyrandor, and Theophany's like, and her.
Yes.
And this is like, yeah, we suspected Bodhi liked her for ages, didn't we?
Yes. We thought that would be one of the reasons that he will betray Xaden as well.
Yeah.
But so far he looks loyal, but the environment that he's going out doesn't look good for him.
No.
Theophany asked to Violet that she need to do it quick, because she's saying that he's going to be really happy to have you. And then Violet's like, who? Berwin. And she said, you think that I really respond to that fool? No, of course not. And then she is looking skywards. Theophany is looking skywards, and says, it's a pity that you don't have the idiot anymore. And this is confirmation that Iris channeled from the sky. One of the reasons they want the Iris is because they are the key for the power that is in the sky. But then Theophany says to Violet, but don't worry, there's plenty of power on the ground. So I think the main reason they want the Irid is because they want that bridge that connects to the sky.
Like limitless power.
Yes. So there's a lot of power in the ground, but in the sky it's just limitless.
Yeah.
So Theophany is getting ready to attack, and then Violet starts to feel a little thing that for her is really familiar, like the temperature start to drop. And this is something that we saw in Fort Wayne when Mira was talking to Lily and say that you're going to kill another your children.
Yeah, yeah,
and
in the
temperature,
office.
the temperature drops. And it's exactly the same is happening, the clouds and everything. Body now is trying to counter it. Body believes that it's working because there's no lightning. But then Violet is looking at everything around, the air, the clouds, the temperature, and like, shit, no, it's not working. She's not a lightning wielder. She's a storm wielder. She is exactly like my mom.
Yeah. And she says your signet mustn't work against their magic.
Yes.
This is another tick in the Bodhi as the brother box, right? So I think it doesn't work. I think Bodhi's signet doesn't work against Theophany because his signet is purely countering signets.
Yes.
We don't know if he can counter Flyer's gifts, but I suspect that he can't. I think he is solely able to counter a signet that's
Rider's sickness. Yeah.
Yeah. And that I don't think a Venin has a signet. It has magic that's channeled in a particular way. A signet is either a unique bond between dragon and rider, something that the rider needs, or a gift from the dragon. We don't really know how signets work. But if we think that it is a sign of what a rider needs and what their destiny is, or who they are at their core, why would Bodhi need to counter people's signets if he was on the side of the riders?
Yeah.
Why would he need that?
Well, he called himself that he's the balance. He is the one who brings make sure that no one's going to overtake anyone else. So I see it from the point of view that maybe we bought Xaden and the rest of the group or the rest of the people. He's kind of like at the bridge to make sure that everyone is still like the same. There's not going to be more one than another one. But I was thinking right now as well, he has a counter signet. But if a Venin has a signet from the dragon first, so it's a rider first, get the signet, because the signet is the chemistry that goes between the dragon and the rider. That's how signets are created, regardless of what it is. But when the rider turns into a Venin, it starts to channel from the ground. It replaces the sword, so the dragon is not taking the power to the rider anymore. That's when they can kill the dragon, because they don't need the dragon anymore. So doesn't mean then that signet doesn't, it's not a signet anymore. It turned into maybe a skill.
Yeah.
Like, as Violet is doing with Andarna's signet. Andarna is not there anymore, but she's still doing it because she has the power
it's a gift.
from 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
You gifted it. So, yeah, I think so, but I just don't think, because I originally thought that it was only worked against their kind of magic. So when he went to be a Venin, it would work against just Venin signets and it wouldn't work against riders. That's what I originally thought. But now I just totally think that he can only counter dragon signets. And why would he need that if he wasn't going to be fighting against them? And we said this in Iron Flame when we found out his signet, didn't we?
Yes.
That, like, that's suspicious. Why would he need that? It's weird. Also, this again is winding him up. He's not good enough. His signet doesn't work against the Venin. What's the point? Like, he needs to go and be a Venin. But how useful would his signet be on either side? It only makes riders weaker. So why would he, at his core, need to weaken riders?
Yeah.
Because he's going to fight against them.
Yeah. I mean, from the moment that he turned into a rider, he knew maybe then some point he will have to fight against Navarre because he was from the Tyrrish rebellion. And then maybe that was like one of the courts.
And that's the only other thing it could be, isn't it? That he could be ultimately the leader of Tyrrendor. And Tyrrendor will have to fight against the rest of the Navarre army. So there is that. There's that definitely that angle as well, which could be fit in with your theory that he's going to be the king.
Yeah. So here's when Violet, she realized that she's a storm wielder. Theophany confirmed that yes, she is a storm wielder. There's just one exception. There's Violet as a lightning wielder. And then she says to her as well that her mother knew about her when she was at the same age as Violet. So when she was a cadet in Basquiat. But Lilith has to run and hide in the walls. That's what she says. So what does it mean? That when Lilith met Theophany for the very first time, she was outside the walls? Or how this works? In what moment? And if we're talking about, she was Violet's age. So when she was a cadet, she wasn't even graduated. What she was doing outside to find Theophany, like when there's no protections.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that we know that Theophany can go inside the wards. I think she probably just ended up having a fight with her. But you're right. Unless she was at Athbine or one of the outposts just outside the wards.
Yeah. I guess maybe the only explanation is that maybe, she was maybe in the limits of the world, and then she started to see that somebody was making like a cloud something, called her attention, and then when she goes to see who is doing that, because it's her signet, and then found out there was a Venin, and like, shit, and then went trying to escape.
Yeah. Do we really think that fear of Theophany was the reason Lilith stayed behind the wards, though?
I think there's way much more than just that. And the fact that the children, they went to Arasia when they were failing and she didn't move from there.
Yeah, to protect them. It's something more, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever she was doing is still something good enough to protect the children or to protect Navarre. She was there for a reason.
Maybe she was there because Theophany would think maybe she was like trying to get Theophany to continue to focus at Bazagayat, so she didn't go follow her children.
For me, obviously, coming from the theory that Lily was a Venin, it comes as well that she was inside the walls because that's the only way that she can control it. Because if she goes out, it's exactly what happened to Xaden. When he's out of the walls, the temptation is really strong.
Yeah.
So for her, staying in the walls is the way to keep herself.
Yeah, like Brennan.
Yes.
No, so I did think that she channeled, but I think she's either cured or she was in control of it.
I definitely think that she was in control.
Yeah. It doesn't work with the balance thing though, does it? But we know there's loads of storm wielders, so.
But yeah, the fight basically starts with the wind. Body is taken by his dragon against his will because he didn't want to leave Violet. But he is the next in line, and even Violet says that he needs to be safe because he's the next in line. Start fighting with Theophany, and then we end with Theophany on top of Violet with a blade, like really on Violet's neck, and she's just forcing him to wheel or to channel from the ground because it's going to be the only way that she can save all the people that are dying in Draytos. Violet look at the Draytos and start to see the horde of wyverns, and then those 1 second later they're like disappearing. So it's like somebody's fighting against those wyverns as well. And it's when she remembered that she is not alone in this battle. And she said, well, I don't need to be everywhere because there's when it comes to me and her, she is best is when he finish. And she's talking about Ree.
And we're about to enter the insane like POV chapters. Yeah.
Yes, that is the end of this chapter.
Yes. So, Oryx Auguries, the part of the show where we recap our favourite theory in the hope that we stitch them together and we at least get something right in the next book. What's your favourite this week?
I think Body will turn into the King of Tyrandor. We had 2 big pieces about this crown of Tyrandor. Theophany said it for a reason, and I think that reason is maybe precognition somehow. So Body is gonna be the King of Tyrandor.
Okay.
What about you?
So I'm gonna pick. I don't want to pick the Dain and Sloane one because it's so obvious. They're going to end up together.
Yeah.
But that is my favourite one because I do like the history repeating itself element. So I think it's a really like basic and probably not that important one. But I think the fact that I like the idea that Melgren, when he gets any kind of sight or rumour that somebody or confirmation that a cadet has manifested precognition, that he just offs them, kills them because he's vulnerable in his position. So yeah, I like the idea that precognition has essentially been wiped from the history books because
Melgren.
Yeah, because of Melgren.
Yeah, I mean, I see that there's a possibility. Yes.
Sticking with the theme of precognition, let's look ahead at the epigraph from chapter 61 next week. Command is built on respect, rules and obedience. Squads are built on trust. Leadership for second years by Major Pippa Donans.
Should we go now to the interrogation chamber?
Yes. So last week we asked if you could learn one rune from Trissa of all the runes we know of so far in the books, which would you learn?
I will definitely go for the sound shield.
The sun shield?
Sound shield.
Sound shield.
Yes. So now that I'm doing the other podcast, I had to do it in daytime. And when you're trying to record in daytime, it's really complicated because there's always something going on. Sometimes I'm recording and then the neighbors start to cut in the grass and you have to wait until they finish.
Yeah.
So I think for me it would be really useful.
Okay, you've answered the question incorrectly. I'm just going to have to make you do it again. So the question is actually like in the story. So you are a rider. You are in the story. Which rune are you like?
In the story, not that real.
Yeah. I mean, we can do it both ways. It's interesting.
I don't know.
Should I answer? I've got 3 that I would use.
3.
Maybe you can steal one of mine. So the sunburn one, like, I'd feel like you'd spend a lot of time in the sky and like close. A lot of sun. Same with the like hand warmer one, you know, the warming rune where you can like warm your hands.
Yeah.
But I think the one that would be the most like dangerous for me would be Cat's gift, because my emotions are quite like erratic anyway. So I would want the rune that protects me from against Cat's gift. I think that would be the one that I would like definitely choose.
Yeah. Or like maybe the one that Violet has, there's just a door can unlock when she really need it.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one.
The unlocking room.
Yes.
Where you go in. You'd be like in scribes and like all of that stuff.
Yeah, can go anywhere just to see what's going on.
Yeah. And then in real life, probably the sunburn one again.
Yeah.
I'd probably have to have that one. Okay. The next question for next week is, we are about to dive into the multiple POVs of events happening at the same time, right? So all of the next few chapters happen not chronologically, but like in parallel. So if you could have one more POV at the same time, not like for the rest of the chapters or rest of the books, because we've had that question before.
Yes.
Whose POV of this moment in time would you have?
Okay, immediately I have like at least 2.
Yeah, and I'm going to go for the opposite one of you, so we get 2 different ones.
Yes.
I don't want the same one.
Agreed.
That's a waste. Okay?
Yes.
So that is all we have time for this week. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Faithfully Fantasy Pod. We're starting to get more active on TikTok as well. So come and join the conversation. We'd love to hear your theories. So if you've got a theory, send it our way. We always give credit on the show and on socials, because let's be honest, the best theories come from all of you.
And with this, we have just one more thing to say. Thank you for listening to Faithfully Fantasy,
The husband and wife podcast talking all things Onyx Storm.
We'll see you next week with more theories, more deep dives, and of course with more Faithfully Fantasy.
Bye.